This is the best keyboard of 2025, at least that's what I thought at first. This is the Yunzii AL80, a keyboard that I'm mad at. And why am I mad at an inanimate object? Well, it was supposed to be the chosen one. This keyboard comes with huge upgrades over the best keyboard of 2025, the Rainy 75. So I thought for sure it would be my new #1 pick. It has some crazy stuff like a lower front height, and it feels way more comfortable to type on. It's got a knob for media controls, yes, a proper knob, and thinner bezels along the side that look super sexy, all while taking up less desk space. It's like a dream come true. The back weight looks amazing with those chiseled peaks and a mirrored backplate. Yunzii made a good looking keyboard, I gotta admit. It even has VIA. Along with all this standard stuff you expect at this price point of $109, it's got an aluminum case, a gasket mount, tritone PBT keycaps, and tri-mode wireless. And the tri-mode wireless even has a dedicated toggle switch and storage for the USB-C dongle. Unlike the Rainy 75, which does not have a toggle switch, and it also has no dongle storage. So yes, on paper, this keyboard should be the new king. But Yunzii had to go and mess up the perfect keyboard. How? Well, the more I looked at it, the more I realized I may have been honeypotted by it. It's got a lot of great things going on, but the more you scratch at the surface and pull the thread, the keyboard starts to unravel. So where do we start? Let's start with the most obvious thing, the screen. Now I know, a screen doesn't sound like a big deal. Well, you're wrong. Oh, okay, that's a little dramatic. But the screen does hold it back for a bunch of reasons. And I'm not totally against screens either. I would say I'm rather screen agnostic. But when it comes to boards that push the $100 mark, adding a screen goes from sorta cool to sorta tacky. Plus, when you mix in VIA, the most amazing open source browser-based software, with a screen, you now need an unholy mix of two softwares, one of which you need to download. Ugh. Now, I tried it out, and it's silly that you even need it. To make matters even worse, the screen is pretty useless. Sure, it can show you the date and the time, which is pretty cool and helpful. I mean, I have a watch that does the same thing, but you have to have these silly eyeballs that bounce up and down everywhere, and it's super distracting. Now, if you don't like that, you can swap out the screen with a PNG of your choosing, which I'll admit is really nice. Until you realize that when the board is on your desk, you can't really even see the screen if you sit normally in your chair, because the second you lean back, the entire screen goes dim. You can only see it when your eyes are directly on the screen. But who types like this? Not me. Not to mention, with the screen, now you're missing out on valuable real estate. The screen comes at the cost of keys like home and end. Now, I don't personally use any of those keys, but I know some people do. Whoever they are. Or if you're feeling super spunky, you could have remapped those keys to something that's useful for you, like macros or something else. But with the screen here, you've got less options. And normally, I wouldn't care. I would just pass on this board, like the dozens of others that I test that never see the light of day or the light of YouTube. But this one makes me angry because it's such a great board. But luckily, I have a solution. I'm going to try and remove the screen later in the video because I may break it, so I'm gonna do it later. It's nice to see that the Yunzii AL80 comes with a knob too. It's preset to turn up and down volume, and if you press it, it mutes the sound altogether. All of this is customizable in VIA, which is nice. I do feel like the knob color is a bit out of place. Between the beige of the case and the mix with purple, white, and tan of the keycaps, the gray metallic knob just stands out like a sore thumb. Now, I've never actually had a sore thumb before. I mean, why is your thumb sore? What are you doing with that thumb? Wait, don't tell me. I don't want to know. The aluminum bezels around the screen also stand out with that same gray color. Not to mention the entire knob is a smooth aluminum, so it feels too simple. Usually they'll have a nice textured feel, but not this one. And you clearly don't get a lot of clearance if you use a knob. You'll be hitting into the delete key or the page up key, but you know what? A knob's a knob, and it's nice to have a knob sometimes. On the back of the board is this back plate, and it's gotta be one of my favorites so far. It looks so clean, well, except for the fact that the mirror picks up all of your fingerprints, but I love the design they chose for it. It's just a shame it's on the underside of the keyboard where you'll never see it. Unlike the Rainy that has hidden screws, this board has screws directly on the bottom of the keyboard, so it makes it a little bit easier to take apart. But the downside is you can see the screws when you flip it over. Now, I'm more about convenience in most cases, so it doesn't bother me at all. But it would have been really nice to see a ball catch where you just pop off the case without needing any screws at all. But for this price point, it makes sense that they didn't opt for that. That's reserved for premium boards. So I got the beige version of the keyboard, but if you're not into the lighter colors, there are two other options, black and silver. And I would probably go for one of those other options instead, but they didn't arrive in time for the video, which is a shame, but I'm trying my best to post twice a week and I really wanted to get this review out for you. On the bottom right of the keyboard is a small LED indicator. This shows your connectivity when connecting to Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz. The brightness of this can be changed with a few shortcuts, but I don't believe you can change the color settings. Now, what surprised me about this keyboard is how few settings for RGB there are in general. It's not a big deal because I don't use RGB, but to those that do, it doesn't have per key RGB, which really limits what you can do with it. And honestly, the RGB doesn't look great anyways since you've got south-facing switches and the keycaps aren't shine through, so it would almost be better if they didn't even have any RGB instead of doing it like this. It's kind of a pointless feature right now, unless they really wanted it for the indicator light, but the color of the keycaps are nice and I like the cherry profile shape. It's a little lower than the standard profile you find on most boards and it's super comfortable, but they're definitely not perfect. You can see minor errors in the legends, especially on keys like the $ above 4 and the number sign above 3. These are tritone, which means you get a mix of 3 colors to tie the design together. On this version, it's light purple, beige, and white. Keyboard comes with 2 switch options, Cocoa Cream V2s and the Gateron Zeros. I ended up with the Cocoa Cream V2s. They have a cream colored stem and a coffee themed lower housing with a brown translucent top housing. They're pretty cool looking, but no one will see them. They're a linear switch, they're pre-lubed, and they feel pretty good to type on. They're nothing crazy. I definitely feel like they could have gone for a switch that felt more consistent from switch to switch, but overall, it's not too bad. The keyboard is also gasket mounted. It's a little stiff though, which means if you press on it, it will bounce up and down. Now it's definitely a little stiffer compared to other boards I've tried in the past, and it's a bit inconsistent across the keyboard too. Each row has its own pitch to it, which you'll hear later in the sound test. The keyboard comes with a quick start guide, a normal guide, a dust cover, which I learned in my last video that a lot of you guys actually use. If you use a dust cover, let me know, because I have 2 cats and I don't. Along with some other accessories, such as keycaps for Mac, Home, and insert keys in case you want to swap out the nav cluster keys, you get a few extra switches, a super basic charging cable, and a keycap puller. So I wonder if the thinner case design also impacted the sound at all, which we'll look at when I tear it apart with my bare hands. Plus, we'll also see if I can get rid of the screen once and for all. So inside the keyboard, there's not a lot of stuff going on, and the digger I deep, the more it feels like I really was honeypotted by this keyboard. The PCB itself is super bare bones. It's that green nasty color. Now most other companies try to make their PCB look a lot nicer with black or gold or red, but this one is bare bones. Both the PCB and the plate have a ton of flex cuts. The plate has a few huge ones, which explains why the gasket mount is so inconsistent. Also, this is some of the nicest spacebar dampening foam I've seen so far. Instead of foam, they use pieces of silicone that just slot right into the plate. The plate is super flexible, about what you expect on a board like this, but the gaskets on this thing are so thin and tiny and cheap feeling. Usually they're thicker, they're squishier, and this doesn't have that, which maybe explains why this feels so stiff compared to other keyboards. Now, if you take a closer look at the screen, no, you can't remove it. It's built into the case. Ugh. I was hoping underneath you could find some empty sockets or you could take it out or slide it out, but you can't. And wow, this keyboard has a ton of screws too. Compared to most screwless designs nowadays, this is kind of shocking. And you have 2 batteries in the bottom. They're both 3000 mAh batteries, which is good enough battery power for a keyboard at this price point. Not bad. So I tried unplugging the screen, but in doing so, I also broke the ribbon cable. So now the screen doesn't work. Now, when it comes to the typing experience overall, it gets pretty dang close to what you want. But due to the inconsistent and stiff gasket mount and the inconsistent switches, it doesn't come quite as close to the Rainy. Instead of the creamy and marbly sound, you get more of a thocky or even a chalky sound. I think Yunzii really needs to take a closer look at the acoustics of this board if they want this thing to dominate like the Rainy. They're so close, yet so far. Overall, this keyboard has some amazing things going for it, but it doesn't quite nail the smaller details and the fundamentals like how the Rainy does, which adds up to be the big thing. The stuff that makes typing on it feel special and polished instead of this lump of a keyboard with lots of features. So I can't quite recommend it, but if there are any keyboard companies watching, there are some great ideas Yunzii came up here that I'd like to see in future builds, just not the screen. And here's what it sounds like. Boom!